That's the story of Long Town. This is vitamins. Like you like walking on the side. There you go. I know. I don't think it's my mom's gonna.
My host has disabled my video.
How rude. One
I
month
turned
I
me off because I didn't want
say something.
to.
So Joanna was comments, I was reading this, witness problems with sound.
I'd like to make a motion to move back into open session.
So,
Second.
Okay, as a result of closed session, we have one action item to take up. The board would like to authorize the GM to negotiate good faith contract with Ryan Gulak for a period of 3 months to ensure the smooth transition of the golf course management.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. That passes. Majority. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 6, the financial reports, September financials. Oh, you are.
Okay, so thank you, directors, for bearing with me as I take you through the highlights of the September financials. In the absence of Joel, our fearless finance director, who was at home suffering from the flu. First up here is the balance sheet. And importantly, note that operating cash is at $748.9. That compares to last year at this time when operating cash was about $452,000. The biggest reason for that is the last year's purchase of loans. The balance sheet, of course, brings together both operational and capital budgets and talks about assets and liabilities. So it's an awesome thing to take a look at in some detail to understand more about the total financial picture of the association. The observation that I have to make on the balance sheet is that we are in good health. Moving to page 2, the income statement. This is always of great interest to me because I like income. My first observation is that our current collection rate year-to-date is at 97.5%, which is an extremely healthy number, especially when compared to last year at 97.2%. Joel always tells us that for each increase, we get $26,000 additional for each of the capital operating budgets. So more collection means more money in our pockets to spend on association assets. The good news is that looking ahead to October and November, the collection rate estimate for October is 97.9, and for November 97.8. So there's no indication that this extremely positive collection rate will be affected in the closing months of 2023. Looking at the year-to-date columns, which I need to get here in my thingy. Technical term, by the way. I know. Also important to talk to your software. See how much more music than Joel. The number here to look at, not more than one reason. Yeah, I heard that. The thing to point out here is golf income. It's just amazing at $1,334,000. Last year at this time, $1,099,000. So a good 200,000 in excess of that. Additionally, we're over plan or budget for the year. Our margin is or over budget is 300,000. So golf is having an extremely healthy year. But although the golf number is so big and overshadows the two that follow it, they also are posting increases to last year. Marina income this year to date, and we're not getting any more, so this is where it's at for the year, guys. 182,000 compared to last year's 146. So some of that, of course, is accounted for by the increase in fees that the board approved last year for the marina, both wet and dry slips. But it also indicates an uptick in the number of daily launch passes that were purchased. Many of the launch passes are purchased by members, but many are not. So that's another source of external revenue for the association, and it's important to note that. Pool revenues, rec center and pool income are also significantly improved over last year. Last year's number was 15.8. This year we took in 22.8. It's a little under budget, so we were ambitious in our budgeting, but also a significant increase. So those are the highlights on page 2. Looking to page 3, this page is an interesting page, and it talks about our cap.
We have a question.
Yes.
Some of your words are not coming up that clear, so I don't know if it's something that it's not.
Okay, I apologize. There I go. Okay. I'll be sure to get rid of this phony as it will become toxic. Can't really see it on the screen here, but this row right here, obligated expenses and holdings. This is an important number. This is the amount of SURF funds that have been obligated by the board and are waiting to be spent down. Okay, so that $1,543,000 is hanging out there. Last year, that number was $495,000. So we have $1 million more in that category. That speaks to the number of ongoing capital projects that we have. In the roads fund, we have $423,000 obligated for projects that's outstanding. And last year, it was kind of flipped. Last year for roads at this time, we had $1,255,000. So we have a lot more active SURF projects right now than roads. That's the takeaway from that page. Page 4 is kind of a snoozer for me. It basically summarizes by department, revenue and expense, and gets to net income. We anticipate that most of our departments are not going to make an operating profit. Obviously, accounting has no way of making money. They just take all of our money and count it for us. But this sheet brings together both the revenue and the expense by department for all our operating departments. There are not significant differences other than golf for these ratios. And page 5 does the same thing, but for year to date. See that previous page 4 is just for September. So if you really want to dive into a month, see how departments are doing at that monthly level, page 4 is the one you want to look at. But page 5 has a year to date, and of course, it's really much more interesting information. And you can see, by department, what we've earned, et cetera, et cetera. Overall, looking at expense for the year, if you look at the full financial statements that are online in the financial archives, financial media archives, our revenues, as already noted, are higher, generally speaking, and our expenses, with some key exceptions, are lower. Areas in which we are exceeding budget in the areas of expense are hazardous trees. We've significantly spent over budget on hazardous tree removal. The other areas are we've overspent our events budget. We've also overspent the budget that we've allocated for legal fees. There are a couple of other line items on which we've overspent, but the important takeaway from a look at the operating budget and expense side is that we have underspent on line items more than we have overspent on line items. So taken all together, we will come in and having spent less overall in total than we expected to operationally, keeping us within budget. And since we are taking in more revenues than anticipated, it is a very healthy picture for the association. Are there any questions regarding the September financials? Yes, Linda?
I just got one. I just have one, and I don't know when the answer comes to that. It has to do with the capital reports.
Oh, sure.
And no, my only question is, practically everything is open. And even earlier this year, you spoke to some projects that were closed and done, but everything's open yet. Is there a time when this is finally, some of these could be closed? Because
yes, and that time is now. At the end of the year, many of these projects will be closed out as part of our year-end activities. During the course of the operating year, Joel's choice is to leave them open because you never know when an additional invoice might come in. And apparently there's work involved in opening something, adding an additional expense, and then closing it out. So for the sake of efficiency, the projects are left as open till year's end, and then he goes through a process of wholesale closing out of things. You'll see a much reduced number in the January or the first quarter 2024 capital report.
so the December ones will still be left open and added to from like what we've done tonight and what was done in October and November.
Correct. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions? Thanks for bearing with me. And Joel will be returning in January.
Okay, thank you, Joanne. All right, continuing business, move on to item number 7, which is continuing business. 7A is the resolution to rescind policy 217.08, your cash 08.
By our secretary, Lynn Bradley. You noted that although we passed a new policy, we did not rescind the old one, which is confusing. The resolution 2017-08 needs to be rescinded as it does not meet the newly adopted state requirements. The September 14th, 2023 board meeting, the board approved a new records and procedure policy that conforms to newly amended state law. On July 23rd, 2023, RCW 64.38.045 and RCW 24.03.215A were amended. This new legislation specifically defines what records the association must retain, how long those records should be retained, and how the association must make records available to members who wish to view them. The legislation also defines the responsibilities of the association regarding when and where records should be made available for members to view and which data elements must be redacted before records are made available to members, as well as allowing the association to charge a reasonable fee for producing and providing copies of records and supervising the members' inspection of those records. The new policy needs to be added to the policy list as number 2023-01, and the list reflects the earlier policy is rescinded.
All right, so the motion is to move. Do you have any questions on any of this first? Go ahead, Sonia.
Well, I'm just wondering why it needs to, if we're just voting to rescind, why wouldn't we just rescind it? And then at the bottom of that policy, it would say rescind it on the board on exit date. I'm not quite sure why we need, this is gonna now, to be in this type of resolution, all these words and everything are now gonna go into a resolution book. It's almost the same as another policy, right? I mean, it's just basically quoting what the policy is for. The policy itself already has its definition and explanation in it. So it seems to me we would just vote to rescind this policy without all of the complication.
Also note it's not actually a resolution. Resolutions are whereas, formal whereas, and now therefore be resolved statements, usually. But I don't necessarily disagree with the motion that we have, but
We just need it rescinded so that it can be noted in the policy book and the new one added.
Yeah, so the motion, I think the motion is fine under, isn't it? It's just, basically, we're just voting to rescind it. So I'll just go ahead and read the motion that's on here. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, so the motion is to move that the board of directors rescind policy number 217-08, records and procedure policy, and update the policy list with the new policy. Can we get a second on the motion?
Second.
And then all in favor with that? Rescind the policy. Okay, it's unanimous.
But just for future clarification for everyone, because I feel like it is somewhat important, like a resolution is a corporate, there's like, they call it either a corporate resolution or like a director's resolution. It's usually a formal document that's not, that says like, whereas this, now for there be resolved this. And the motion is to approve resolution, not as different, there's no like different motion, that's I guess what I'm saying. It's not really like, it's just kind of a formality thing, I guess, really. It's not like, like I agree with rescinding the policy, but a resolution, the motion would be that we approve the resolution, and the resolution would say now therefore be resolved that this policy was rescinded or whatever, which is probably over and above what we need to do to rescind the policy. But I just want to be clear when I was saying like a resolution is that, we write this whereas thing with a therefore statement and we make a motion to approve that whole document. Whereas this was like, we made a motion that really had nothing. You wrote like a blurb to explain the motion is what it was, more than a resolution, I guess.
If this would have been included when you first voted on September 14th to the whole part of this that should have gone with it, this wouldn't be necessary because it would already have been done. It would have been in, as you say, that full resolution.
I
So in the future, I think we should make sure that, that's included if any policies are being replaced.
Just a question.
Yes, sir. Go
Is
ahead.
there a template for these resolutions with some instruction that might be helpful?
Generally, the policies at the bottom, basically, it'll have the date that they're enacted, and then if they're rescinded, there's a rescission date that you can put at the bottom of them.
Right, I think what my question was, I've seen motions to the board that have been in the form of a resolution like that.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering if there's a template with some instruction that would be helpful.
it's mostly just like you basically have a title, you know, what are we talking about here? You know, in this case, it would, if this was a full resolution, it would be, you know, something along resolutions to rescind policy, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's usually just whereas, and you're stating the things that happen to get you to the point of, you know, so it's like, whereas we approved this policy, you know, this new records policy then, whereas we didn't rescind this old one, where, you know, this is just, you know.
Yeah, it's, if you Google it, Rob, you can, if you say something like, format for a formal resolution,
Yeah, just search corporate resolution.
yeah, you can find all sorts of examples.
Boardeffect.com has a lot of good information on board, you know, all different types of boards, but
Thank you.
yeah, and like a lot of times our lawyer will write resolutions, you know, because a lot of times, usually use them for very important big decisions. And then the resolution itself has to get included in the minutes. If it's a corporate resolution, it should be like it should get attached completely to, you know, the other minute pages that Joanne puts together.
Right, that makes sense, because I think I've seen these like with some capital requests. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 7B, committee appointments. Are there any committee appointments this evening? Okay, I didn't think so. Okay, move on to item number 8, which is new business. 8A is capital request to repeal Pleasant Valley SVCA facility for change order request.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you guys not hear that? You could hear.
The purpose of this is to request a change order for capital project 972205, to rekey door locks on all SVCA facilities. On June 7th, 2022, the capital request was approved to outlay up to $25,000 for A1 mobile lock and key to replace door locks on SVCA facilities. Okay, I can't read. Can someone just read this?
Yeah,
one?
there you go. Oh, yeah, okay. We're gonna continue. Due to staff turnover and other priorities, this project was delayed and remains incomplete. Analysis, the scope of the original project proposed in 2022 remains the same. Rekey all SVCA locks. Attached to the 2022 capital request for reference. The project will consist of replacing 130 key cylinders, providing 11 new key doorknobs, and other needed components. A recent survey has been completed and a vendor has been identified, Accurate Lock and Security, that can complete the project for approximately the same dollar amount that was quoted in 2022. However, the original request did not account for sales tax, and it is anticipated that an additional 10 padlocks plus spares will be needed that were not identified in the original survey. Excuse me, I added original in the survey. Proposal. Attaches Accurate Locking Security's quote. Based on this proposal, we are requesting the following funds. $25,000 replacement of locks identified per the quote. $1,500 allowance for SVCA to purchase additional padlocks. $2,500, 10% contingency to cover damage to existing hardware not known until locks are taken apart to replace quarters. $2,494 for walking tax, 8.6% tax, and $31,494 to be the total. The original project request authorized $25,000 for this project. Based on the breakdown above, to account for the state tax not included in the 2022 damaged hardware allowance and padlock purchases, a change order funding increase of $6,494 is requested. The request number one, they're requesting additional funding from SURF for SBCA Capital Code 9722.05 in the amount of $6,494. Request number two, construction contract is attached. The contract will be issued. Estimate provided in the quote plus Washington County tax, that state tax at 8.6% for a total of $27,150. The maintenance facilities manager will be responsible for any change order to the accurate lock and security up to the balance of additional funds requested of $4,344. So motion one, we're not going to do that. So you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns on that? You understand what it's for? Yes, Linda?
I just have one quick question. So the way this is written, I'm assuming they're going to give us these 10 catalogs. Those are expensive. Are they great big, what are they that we need to get them from them rather than just purchase them?
They're extremely heavy duty and they are cord, they have cord cylinders. So it's not at all comparable to like what you would get just walking in the hardware center.
Okay.
Okay, so motion number one is that we move that the SBCA Board of Directors approves the allocation of an additional $6,494 from SURF to Capital Code 9722.05 for routine CA's facilities.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, motion two is that move that SBCA Board of Directors authorize the general manager to execute the contract with Accurate Lock and Security in the amount of $27,150 using SBCA standard construction contract, and that the maintenance and facilities manager be approved to administer change order funds up to $4,344. Get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. Okay, that's been approved. Okay. That's it. Can we get a motion to adjourn unless anybody has anything else? What's that? Oh, 8B, we have, 8B, darn, I thought that. All right, 8B, the capital request.
They're rocket secretary all the time.
Man, if I could get the podium.
Yes.
Do you want a copy or do you have one?
Hello, Brandon.
Hello. Yeah, so.
You gotta get right up close.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Closer.
Closer.
Is this better? Oh, there we go. Okay, so the capital request is for 10 additional golf carts. I won't read this verbatim, but the bottom line is that the problem we have right now is a good problem. We purchased a fleet of 50 carts in 2021, and based on the increased demand for golf and cart golf in particular, the newer demographic that's playing golf tends to ride almost exclusively. So we're seeing a large increase in the usage of our golf carts. Challenge that we have with having just 50 carts is that we run out of carts frequently, sometimes as early as 10:30 in the morning on a busy day. So our staff is, we end up providing poor service. Sometimes, most of the time we're able to actually get the customers' carts. Sometimes it's as late as the first hole, the first tee. Sometimes we have to run it onto them on the second hole. But oftentimes they're just, the bottom line is we end up providing poor service. We don't get the carts washed. Very often our Marshall cart ends up being put into service for a golfing customer, so we're not able to marshal the course properly. I feel that 10 more carts would make a huge difference and allow us to provide the service that we're hoping to provide. The carts that we purchased in 2021 are a fleet of Club Car Tempos, gas golf carts. We've been very pleased with the performance of these carts. They're similar carts to our last fleet that survived 7 years, being stored outdoors, which is pretty impressive. So we expect to get the same type of life out of these carts. And fortunately, of the three manufacturers, Club Car provided the best quote, and I believe they are the best golf cart as well. So I feel a little bit surprised, to be honest with it. Typically the cost difference isn't too much difference between Club Car and E-Z-GO, but with this quote, they end up being a little bit, actually fairly significantly less than E-Z-GO and about the same as Yamaha. Definitely a superior car to Yamaha for sure. So I would like to, my suggestion is that we go with a lease, but we could do a cash purchase as well. That would be kind of up to the board what direction they want to go, but a 5-year lease would in my estimation, be a good way for us to go. And as you can see, I listed cart revenue over the past 3 years, and the increase, I think, helps make a good case for adding the 10 carts. So that pretty much sums it up. If anybody has questions.
I just have one for you, Ryan. Did you increase the rental for them in 2024 also? I know you submitted your rates.
I believe cart rates went up $1 per, from 17 to 18 was the new approved rate.
So is there any room to increase rates higher this year on those?
I think that $18 per rider amounts to $36 per car rental, which is on the high side, industry standard wise. So I feel a little uncomfortable going much above that in 2024.
Yeah, because I was just looking at these numbers, and so you've got this additional revenue, but we're going to wipe it out with the cards, which obviously I hear what you're saying that we need them, but I'm just trying to see if there was.
Charges 13 a head to ride.
Yeah, 18. yeah. They, I don't know if they're a golf rate. It might be a little higher. There's sometimes courses that have disc golf and foot golf charge less, but 18 would be on the high side, certainly industry standard wise. So I feel we might. If the next bump I would look at would probably be in 2025. I wouldn't look at that, but yeah.
So just as a note for the board, over the course of a lease, we would spend an additional $15,248 for the ability to lease them, as opposed to simply purchasing them now for $66,252.
Say that again.
Well, the lease is $1,360 a month, right?
Yeah.
Right, so $1,360.
Yeah.
Right, times 12 months. That's $16,320 a year times 5 years. That's $81,600. And then there's a $1 buyout at the end of the lease. So the carts would cost us $81,600 over the course of 5 years, as opposed to paying out the cash now of $66,352. So that's a savings of about $15K.
Approximately 50K. Yeah, approximately 50K.
Yeah, it's just that it comes in close to what the additional revenue is. That was my only concern. Is that, if there was another additional amount. I hear what you're saying. And if this continues, we're going to need more carts potentially next year too, right?
I would be surprised if we needed to increase next year. Again, I think 60 is going to be a pretty good number for us, but I think that if we would be getting into a problem if we talk about going to 70 or 65 or 70, then we would get into a storage issue. We will be able to store and secure them in the current storage area, which is right in front of the golf shop, at 60. 70 would create other additional issues in terms of storage. And I don't know that, I think it would be a good problem if we probably face that another year, but I'd be really surprised if that was the case. Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. We're talking about these, would you put them in rotation to where they would be in the mix, and then so that would also help the rest of the carts go a little further down the road?
That's a good question. Yes, that the game plan would be to have them in equal rotation. Possibly because the leases won't match up down the road in year 5 or 6, in order to allow them to maybe last a couple of years longer. There's a potential. When we did do this earlier, several years ago, when we did have 10 cars, when we went from 40 to 50, we had 10 cars that weren't in sync year-wise. And so we did actually treat those as additional carts, and we used them last always to help extend their life and to get them to match up with the others. So that's a possibility down the road, but right off the bat, the game plan would be to put them in equal rotation. Rob, do you have a question?
Actually, Sam asked my question.
Jay?
So when we did the 50 like 4 years ago now?
Three seasons. So yeah, 3 golf seasons. But it was about this time in 2020, I believe. We took delivery in spring of 21. So 21, 22, 23, 3 golf seasons.
And at that time we did the capital lease, and I'm trying to recall all the way back then. That was what you recommended, and I feel like it was something to do with when we buy them, it's nice because then you own them and you can resell them, but then you end up hanging on to them usually, and you end up dumping a bunch of money into them to keep them maintained. And so we went with the lease so that, same reason why some people choose to just keep leasing a car. They always get a new one.
Yeah, so the reason, sorry.
Was that why we should lease these? Or I'm wondering if maybe these ones we should buy and then get them all on a rotation at some point.
That's a fair question and an interesting thought. One of the reasons, you bring up a good point, that one of the big reasons why we went with the capital lease with our last fleet was because, actually it was more with the fleet before this one, was because we weren't sure if storing them outdoors exclusively. We used to store them in the winter in the barns. We weren't sure how long it would last, if they would make it much past the 5 years, but we like the idea of owning them after 5 years and then having the potential to operate them for a year or 2 free and clear with no payments at a very profitable level. And in fact, we were able to do that. So to your point, the concept of being able to run them past 5 years has kind of been proven. So that might make more sense to just go ahead and pay cash and buy them and avoid the financing. It's a fair way to look at it. I'm not, for whatever reason, I kind of like the idea of having of spreading the cost out, but there is obviously a cost to that. So it has more to do with how we want to manage our capital funds, I would think.
In the 2025 budget for golf, there is a $66,000 allocation towards renovation of the bathrooms. While the bathrooms are not deluxe bathrooms, they're also not in bad repair. So there is money in that capital budget that could be pulled forward if you wanted to make it a purchase.
Yes, Linda?
I just want to say that as far as purchasing them outright this year, we've done around $250,000 to include the outside of the Area Z building. It's unbudgeted in the budget. This is another big item, and I tend to think I'd rather see it spread out rather than, we don't have these in that budget. You know, you can move money around, but I'm saying it's not a budgeted item. And that's part of what state law talks about if you're working outside your budget for the year.
So agreed and understood. But my recommendation would be that we don't commit to this until January 1, so it'll be in 2024. We do have to make a decision quickly though, so we get the carts. There's some timeline between when you order them and when you get them, right? So we do need to make it quickly, so we are sure to have them for the beginning of the busy season of golf. But we can push this expense, and should, I believe, into 2024. I have just a general question, Brian. These are gas carts. Are people moving to electric, and when would we do that?
Yes, and that's a good question as well. Couple challenges with electric. First and foremost, we need an indoor facility to store them. So that's a big barrier. The other issue is at 4 years, when in a fleet situation, you need to replace the batteries, which is, even with lead acid, the cost of lead acid batteries has gone up dramatically. So you're looking at about $1,400 per car. Probably get it better. You could maybe get it down, well, 4 years, yeah, it would be for sure $1,400 per car. So in order to, if you went with an operational lease, it would make more sense because then you would turn them in at that point. The nice thing about the gas cards is that ability to operate them for 7 years and get those years where you're on free and clear, don't have any payments on them. So 10 years ago, I was super focused on wanting to move us into an electric fleet. I had operated an electric fleet. There's a lot of advantages to the electric fleets. But seeing how well these carts have performed and lasted, being stored outdoors, and again, that additional couple of years where you get to operate them without any kind of payments. I changed my mind a little bit to where I'm not as against gas carts as I used to be. Now, something to consider that could happen down the road is that we might not have an option. And when we go to do another fleet in 7 years, it's entirely possible that they are not selling gas carts. The state won't allow it. California does not allow it. So it's not, sorry, go ahead.
Could you explain to our two viewers out there that may be watching and the rest of us, what happens to those batteries that is a problem? Explain why those batteries need to be stored inside.
Yeah, so when they're plugged in, the cars have to be plugged in every night and recharged. And in order to make sure that they're out of the weather and not get wet when they're being charged, they have to be charged indoors. So it's not safe to charge electric cars in an outdoor situation, and it more likely voids the warranty.
What about lithium ion? Do you have to charge inside as well, lithium ion?
I can't say for 100%, but my assumption would be it's a similar setup. I would assume that lithium would have to be charged indoors as well.
Well, the reason why I bring up the lithium ion is I've seen some charts that show that even though lithium ion batteries cost more, they don't mind being discharged down to a 20% level, and they don't mind being recycled. They clean themselves over time.
Yes, and they last longer. So in a fleet situation, it's entirely possible that it will make more sense with our next fleet to go with lithium. And many of us thought that the idea that lithium was going to come down in price because it's been prohibitive. But what's actually happening is lead acid is going up in cost so dramatically that the difference is shrinking, and the performance is unquestionably better out of lithium ion than lead acid for sure. So it might make sense for our next fleet to look at it, but we would almost certainly have to look at having an indoor storage building as well.
Also, just two follow-up questions, and then I know it's getting late. One being, if we lease the carts, is the maintenance count, is that part of the lease, so that if there's any maintenance that need to be done on the drivetrains and engines? And then the second question is, going back to the electric charging, do we even have the electrical infrastructure down there to charge 60 carts?
No, we do not.
Thank you.
And regardless of whether we lease or purchase it, it's a 4-year warranty on the carts.
Any additional questions? Okay. You guys ready? Yeah. All right, so the motion on the table is move that the SBCA Board of Directors authorize the general manager to sign a 5-year lease with Peak Golf and UTV for 10 new club car, gas-powered golf carts for $16,320 annually, or $81,600 over the course of 5 years.
Second.
All in favor? That's Rob, Jim? Oh, that's unanimous. Rob, what's up? All right, that's been approved. All right, with that, a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second,
Overtime.
adjourn,
Oh, 30.
second and third.